Hello all, welcome back to Tosca Scenario Handling Series Part 2 by Technology Training Experts. If you have not watched our Part 1 video, we have added that link in the description. That talks about report and file handling in Tosca. Please go through it. And also, please subscribe to the channel. Now this video will talk about Excel file handling. Reading the data from the Excel and writing the data into the Excel. This is a step-by-step learning procedure, so we want you to see the complete video and happy learning. Excel is very important in any automation tool, so it is an integral part in any framework to handle the data, both input and also output. Now in this training we'll be talking about the different scenarios of how do we handle Excel in Tosca. See, the first scenario would be read the data from Excel sheet using row. I did mention here row because we can read the data from the Excel sheet using a column also. Okay, so first let us see of how do we handle the data from Excel. So I have created an Excel sheet here called student marks, and I have class 10, class 9, class 8. I have different classes here, and inside this I have a simple data here: the student ID, student name, student marks, and exam status, whether the exam is pass or fail. Okay, so I have some sample data here, so of 3 students here with different IDs and marks. Okay, so this is a simple Excel sheet. Now you can have any project information here, but I'm going to take a very simple and straightforward data. So what is my requirement? I want to read the data from this Excel sheet using the row. Read the data into Tosca. Okay, so how do I do that? If you take Tosca, firstly let me create a test case here. Excel read using row. Okay, so Excel handling in Tosca, you go to modules, and if you expand the standard modules, and inside this TBox extensions there is a specific folder here called Excel. So if you expand this, it has so many good number of modules, standard modules given by Tricentis. You take any test case inside Tosca that you want to talk with Excel, you have to have minimum 3 to 4 modules. What is that we first do? We have to first open the Excel workbook. So open Excel workbook is the first thing that you have to do. Without opening, you can't even talk to this Excel. So after opening the Excel workbook, we have to define the range, because an Excel sheet, as I have shown, will have different sheet. An Excel workbook will have different sheets, and each sheet will have so many rows of data, maybe close to 10,000 rows of data. You don't need everything, because if you consider everything, then it will make your test case so big and the loading will be very heavy. So the performance will be affected. So we have to define the range very clearly. What is the range that we are going to talk to? Okay, and then this Excel range manipulation. Now this is the place where you actually talk to the Excel sheet. And finally, once your work is complete, we come back and we close the Excel workbook. Okay, so let me add all these 4 steps. So first, open Excel workbook, drag this, go to the test case and drop it on this. So it has few steps that is for us to understand. The very few things are, it is asking workbook name and path, and create new password, and also open read only. See, I have already created this Excel sheet. This Excel sheet is already present, so create new won't even come, and I don't have any password to this, so these 2 options won't even come. So yeah, my requirement is to read, so I have to talk about this. First of all, let me give the path of this particular Excel sheet. So how do I define the path? Let us come to here and shift right click on this and copy as path, you see, and come here and paste it inside this path. So when you paste it here, you will have double quotes before and after. You have to remove this obviously, and let us give the workbook name here. What is the workbook name? See, I already told you you'll have to create the defined range, so, and also we have to use the Excel range manipulation. So if you observe these things, not everywhere you will have path mentioned. So without giving path, how does the Tosca understand that you are going to talk to this Excel sheet? See, while opening this Excel sheet itself, you are given path and given name to this Excel sheet, so that inside this test case, anywhere you want to talk to this Excel sheet, you don't have to call the path. You simply call this workbook name. That is more than enough. So let me give student info. That's the name of the workbook. So this name can be anything. It's up to you. Now student name, student info will be, this name is a workbook name. It is connected to this particular path. Okay, so now yes, I want to just read the data from the row. So let me handle this as true. Yes, I want to read the data. Okay, so now expand this and go back to the module and drag and drop this define Excel range. So drag this Excel range and drop it on this. Okay, so when you drop it on this, it is asking the first thing as workbook name. So we already have given the workbook name, so simply copy this workbook name, come here and paste it on this place. Okay, now inside this workbook, what is the worksheet that you are going to talk about? Worksheet name. So come here, every time copy paste it, don't type it, because there can be a mistake, spelling mistakes that can come into the picture. So copy that and come here and paste it. Okay, now inside this sheet, how many rows and columns of data that we have, we can mention. So this has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of rows and columns, but we don't need everything. We just need this 4 rows of data and 4 columns of data. So our range is starting from column A, row 1 to column D, row 4. So our range is A1 to D4. This last cell is D column, 4th row. So A1 to D4, this is our range. So we have to mention these things here. So start cell is A1 and end cell is D4. Okay, and give a name to this range. So I generally prefer R1. So you can give any name, but R specifies for range, so I give it as R1. So now this, in this test case, if you observe, we have opened the Excel sheet and we have defined the range. Okay, so now we have to talk to this particular Excel sheet and read the data. So how do we read the data? So inside this, let me get this, the Excel range manipulation module. Okay, and drop it on this test case. Now this is Excel range manipulation. Now the first thing it is asking is range name. So we already have defined the range here, R1. Okay, so you come here and you specify that, yeah, talk to this R1 range. So inside this R1 range, now this is your actual logic. Observe this closely. So expand this data table. You have row and column. Now this is exactly what we want to talk to. We have rows and columns. Now let me take your requirement. Let me take a requirement. My requirement is, I just want to read the first row information, which means this. I want to read and I want to verify. I want to read the data and I want to verify. I want to verify whether the first row, student ID is 1111 and student name is Rahul and student marks is 72. I want to verify this information. So go here in the Excel range manipulation. For this range R1, go to this row. You see this, there is a difference here. The horizontal lines implies that this is a row and the vertical lines implies that this is a column. So expand this and this is the row. So if you drop down from this row, it is saying $1, which means first row, $2, which means second row, $3, third row, fourth row. So I'm going to select first row. Now some people will get a confusion here. So some people will ask, okay, so practically this header is the first row and this is the second row, right? This is the second row practically. But why did we mention $1 here? If we mention $1, it may take the header. but I'll give you some important information here. This is an important information. Go to the modules and see this Excel. If you expand this Excel and go to this range manipulation, Excel range manipulation, this is the place where we are going to talk to. So if you see this data table, you click on this data table and you go to the properties of this data table. So scroll down, can you see something called a steering parameter called header row? And what is the value that is given here? 1. This header row property name, the value 1 implies you are telling the tool, wherever you are using this Excel range manipulation, wherever the Excel that you are connecting to, the first row will be the header. You are telling to the tool, the first row is the header. Don't touch that. Don't consider it as values. You are telling that very clearly here. If in case if your Excel sheet has the first column as a value, okay, so first column as headers, okay, you come here, header column value, change it to 1. Okay, please do remember this, but don't change every time, because if you change here, wherever you use this Excel range manipulation, everywhere it will get impacted in all the test cases. So please be mindful when you're doing it. So now coming back to our requirement. So when I say $1 here, it will always take the first data row. Okay. So now, but inside this row, what is that I want? So if you go to the cell, if you go to the first row cell, so there is a drop down here. It is asking column name. So I go to the Excel sheet and I take the column name here. So in the first row, what is that I want? I want student ID information. So come here, get that student ID column and paste it here and give that here. So first row, student ID column, what is the value that you are expecting here? 1 1 1 1. You want to verify it, you can verify it this way. Now I just don't want to verify it, I want to buffer it. Means I want to get this value. Student name, go to this Tosca, give it here, paste it over here, student name. I don't want to buffer it, I don't want to verify it, I want to buffer it. So let me buffer it and say student name buffer. I can verify the data from the Excel sheet, or also I can buffer the data. I can read the data and I can store it inside this buffer. So now the data from the Excel sheet has come and stored is stored inside this student name buffer. Okay. Now again, the last value would be student marks. Again here also you can save it or verify it. Okay. So let me verify this option. It's a verify. And here the marks would be 75, if I remember correctly, 72. Okay, so 72. So this is how you read the data. This is for first row. Again, if you want second row, put one more dollar here, $2, and repeat all these column names here: student ID, student name, student marks. Okay, again you want fifth row, keep it as $5. How many other rows of data you want, you can get it. Okay, so we read this information. Now, okay, reading is complete. Now what did I say? After completing whatever we want to close this Excel workbook. So drag this close workbook, come here and drop it on this Excel read using row. So I click on close workbook. It is simply saying workbook name. What is our workbook name? We have already given it at the top. So student info, copy this, come here and say like my work is complete. Let me close this workbook. So you don't have to save or save path or path, because we are not writing anything inside this. So all these options are not even needed. So simply you say close that Excel workbook. So this is how you read a data from Excel sheet using a row concept. So now I'll execute this. You see, I'm repeating. We open the Excel workbook and we define the path. We give a name. Using that name here, we say inside this workbook, go to this sheet and define the range. And for that range, you talk to the first row, get all the columns, you either verify or buffer it, and finally you close it. Now you want to run this information, so better you close this Excel workbook, because when you are running, you should not have that open. Okay, so right click on this and run it in Scratchbook. When you run it in Scratchbook, you cannot see any mouse movement or UI because there is no web application here. It's a simple Excel sheet. All works at the back end. As you can see, the test case is successful. Let me expand the steps and explain you. So the test case says the first part is Excel open workbook. It is open, and then define range. Our range R1 is updated. Okay, with this information whatever we have provided successfully. Now this is where we want. So expand this. You want to verify something and also buffer it. You see, verification is successful. You are expecting 1111 and your actual value is 1111, and you are buffering the student name with as student name buffer has been set to value Rahul, and here it is 72. You are expecting 72 and actual value is also 72. Finally you are closing it. This is how you read the data from Excel workbook. Now I can do the same thing, read the data from Excel using a column. That's my second requirement here. Okay, so to read data from Excel sheet using a column. So how do we handle a column? Go to this test case again. I'm not going to repeat all these things, so simply copy this test case and inside this I'm going to paste it. Okay, so here it is not using row, using column. Give the good meaningful name so that you will remember and you will have this for a long time. So reading, I have to open the same Excel sheet, so no change, and it's still I'm only reading it, I'm not writing it. And then define Excel range, it's still the same workbook, same sheet, same range. I did not change any data. So come here for this R1, instead of updating in the row 1, now I want to go to the column. Okay, so let me go to the column. Now what is that I want inside this column? Let me open this Excel worksheet for us. Okay, so now what is that I want to do? Instead of row, I want to specify the column names here. Okay, so what are the different column names we have? You see the student ID, this is the column name. So give this column name. Okay, so you have given the column name. So inside the student name, inside the student ID column, which row of data you want? I want the first row. This is the first row, right? I already told you the data point of view. This is the first entry. So inside this column, the first row I wanted. So you specify that here. Inside the student ID, when I say row, how do we specify a row? $1. It's just reverse. You see $1 student ID or student ID $1. In either case it is same. You verify if it is. Now let's go to 2. What's wrong in that? Let's go to 2. Okay, for the second value I want to verify if it is 2222 or not. And also again, interesting part would be second row. This is, you want to get third row also. Yeah, you can at the same time you can get any number of values. Third row value would be student ID for this 3333. Okay, so second row and third row values are 3333. Now I want student names. Come here. So copy the student name. I mean I'm reusing it from here, but you have to copy it from the Excel workbook. So you see, the moment I created, a student name has been created. So now I want the second row, maybe second row, and I want to buffer it. Same concept. Instead of verify, I'll use buffer. So I have to give proper name here, student name buffer. Let me use the same thing whatever I have used at the top. Okay, I can do the same thing for $3 also, but you know the concept now. I understand the concept, right? So I am gonna delete this or disable this. Why to delete it? Let's disable this, it won't run. Okay, so I have two columns here, student ID column and student name column. In both the cases I am verifying something or I'm reading it and I'm storing it in a buffer. In either cases I want to talk to this Excel sheet. And finally we have to close the workbook. Okay, so let me close this workbook and we will run this test case. Okay, right click on this, run in Scratchbook. So when we run this, as I told already previously, it will be running. I mean, you make sure you do not open this, and the running execution is also successful. You see the student ID, both the verifications are successful. you're expecting 2222, and actual value is 2222. You're expecting 3333, actual value is 3333. Student name, we have asked it to buffer it, so student name buffer has been updated to Jyoti. That's the second name. This is how we read the data from Excel sheet. Now one last thing we can understand here is, let us write the data into this Excel sheet. The last thing here we want to learn is, we want to write the data into Excel. Again, you want to write it using a row or column, it's up to you at the end of the day. Okay, so what is that I want to write? I want to write I want to write this, whether this student is pass or not. Okay, so I just want to open this Excel workbook, and the marks of the first student would be 72. Okay, now I know that manually I'm doing the calculation manually here, and I want to update it as pass, the status as pass. Okay, so how do I write this data? Now in the next videos I will tell you how to do all these things from the automation perspective, but now I'm not going to explain too deep here. Let us first understand how do we handle the Excel sheet, and how do we read the data and write the data. We'll see some more business scenarios of how do we both read one data and read multiple data and read all the rows on its own, update on its own. We'll see with a business example. Okay, so as of now, let's simply learn how to write the data. So I'm going to use a row because it is the first row. That's an easy and straightforward item. So right click on this and paste it. So I'm going to rename this as Excel write using row. Okay, you can use using column also, it's up to you, but we have to make some modifications here. And all of you, once a test case is complete, change the work state from planned to completed, because I mean technically this will not have any impact, but reporting point of view it will have a lot of impact. Okay, this is really important from project's perspective. Now Excel write using row. So let's go to the first one. Now it's the same Excel workbook, the same Excel workbook name, but open as read only. No, I don't want to read only because I want to write some data inside this. So read only should not be as true. It should be either false or simply I'll remove this option. Okay, so how do I remove this? Delete it. Now simply I'm opening it and I am defining the range. It is still the same range. I go to the Excel range manipulation. Now here is the interesting part. Go to the first row. It's not student ID, it's not student marks, it's not student name. So I want the exam status to be updated. So copy this column, you come here and let us give it here. Okay, exam status, and instead of verify, let me give it as input, and I'm gonna pass it as PASS, pass. And I don't need these three informations here, but if you still want it you can do it, but I simply want to write it. Okay, while writing, right, I can still read the data. Yes. Okay, so maybe let's have this information here. I'll delete just this buffering alone, we don't need that. So verify if this student ID is 1111, student marks is 72, and I want to input this exam status for the student as pass for the first row. I'm not doing any processing here. All I'm doing is manually I'm updating it. Okay, because we are learning of how to handle the Excel sheet. So go to this Excel close workbook. This is really important part. Many people miss this and they execute and say like I've done everything correctly, but at the end of the day it is not getting impacted. The write is not successful. Write is not successful because you're not saving it at the end of the day. So you have made a change in the workbook. So come here and say true for the save. It is inputted. Let me save this test case, and again the drill is same. Let us close this Excel workbook and let me run this test case. So when I run this test case, the expected result is the Excel sheet will be updated with the exam status as pass for the first row. You see it is successful. Okay, let me open that. You cannot see anything from the Scratchbook execution. It will simply say success, that's it. but will not see where. Yeah, you see exam status, it does not say anything, it simply says success. But let me go here and open this Excel workbook from here, and let us see if the pass has been updated as a value or not. You see this pass here, this is how we write. So these are the basic things that we have, that we deal in projects. We read the data, we write the data. But in as an extension to this, I want to tell some more things here. Like, in a single scenario, we can read and also write. We can read the data and also we can write. That is what I have shown you here. We are reading the data and also we are writing the data. Okay, so but in projects, how exactly it will be like is, we read the data, process it and write the data. This is how it works. So that is for only one row. So read that, process it and write it for multiple rows. These are the two extra scenarios we will be discussing in our next video. Until then, happy learning. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so that you will never miss our next concept. Also, if you have any questions, please comment in the video or mail us at technologytrainingexperts@gmail.com. See you in the next video.